Hey everybody, we're here on the Baseline Show once again for the, I think, must be the 55th straight week of baselining. It's good to see everybody here today, and we're going to be talking about all things baseline, as we always do. Baseline protocol, baseline-protocol.org. Go over there, get set up, get into our Slack channel, join the community, super friendly group, and not only super friendly group, super getting to be well off group, given that there's so much money starting to be made in baselining. So it's great to see so many people. Actually, looks like a very large number online already. Or for starters, we don't usually have this many, and we got a full board here. We got Carl, we got Tyler, we got Boris, we got Samrat, Tyler, Lucas, Junter, looks like maybe a new entrant, Bishwashri, Jesse, Jack Garvin, Jack Lee, and Kyle Thomas, the inimitable Kyle Thomas. So it's great to see everybody. We have a couple of terrific announcements, and with Bishwashri and let's see, do we have Boris? Do we have Boris? We do have Boris. So we have a great announcement. If you again, if you go to baseline-protocol.org, the topmost link there you'll see on the main page is the link to the incentive program that graciously the Ethereum Foundation gave the Baseline Protocol community $100,000 to spend on R&D and enablement projects. And we are getting some really good grant proposals and also bounty proposals. We've already made one grant award, and now we are going to announce today 2 more grant awards. Still plenty of money in that pot. So come on in and propose really good projects. Again, baseline-protocol.org. And you should have a straight path into the process of proposing what you'd like to work on. Without further ado, I think, shall we start with Boris and give Bishwashri a few minutes to get ready? Boris, why don't you tell us what you've won? Tell us what you're working on that we've just approved.
Sure. So we'll be building zero knowledge circuits for OTC, basically over-the-counter financial products. From a financial perspective, some of the more simpler ones, bonds, and it will be built in such a way that, like the libraries, the ZKP libraries, the plan is to basically be able to use NARC or anything else that will give us the results. Okay, it's I mean, we're looking to complete it in about 8 weeks, and we already started like pulling a branch, creating a separate branch, and working with Sam basically if we have any questions. That's kind of at the high level. I'm not sure how detailed you want to get into it, but if there are any questions, please let me know. Yeah.
Right on, and I'm showing the GitHub.
Sure. Yeah. It's like 3 of us working on it. So there was a college student. We have a senior Solidity Ethereum person on it, and myself, which kind of will do a little of everything. But we also intend to document our experience if challenges we kind of run into, and potentially some suggestions, recommendations along the way. So that's and it's a very small step of what's kind of we see that where the financial industry is moving, I believe, based on some projects I'm aware of, and I think in the future there'll be a lot more. It is in a way it's simulating a very small thing that is being done in Bloomberg today, either on a phone or in Bloomberg as far as baselining products as decisions are being made between different parties.
Boris, I'm particularly excited about this one. Congrats, and
thank you. Yeah.
Can you Can you speak to some of the specifics of the circuits that you're going to make? I know you're sort of starting there, and also
Right.
what proving schemes like are you looking to implement with NARC?
I mean, we're looking at basically proving like a bond that can be identified and recognized via ISIN, QSIP, and a ticker. I'm sorry, a ticker and the yield. So and since there are various types of bonds, I mean they kind of they can do the complexity. So I think we'll end up with a few circuits, another specifically for bonds, and if we have enough time, we'll extend it into some credit derivative products, which potentially a credit default swap, which is a more complex product. It's something I'm very familiar with, but I don't know if we'll how simple is it going to be to implement it. But it's a very common over-the-counter product that's being in a way baselined often outside of a bank because it is pretty complicated to. Banks don't want to really deal with it, so they hire vendors outside like DTCC to do a lot of this stuff. So I know that yeah. So that's. I don't know if this is enough detail, but we could definitely, Kyle. I'll be happy to discuss more details
Sure.
as we proceed, and if you have any questions, definitely, because I see it as a learning experience, and having basically everyone on a call and benefit from it, and ask questions and communicate on it. So we'll definitely, as a team, we'll be happy to discuss every little detail and help us with our questions, and I'll be happy to answer any questions or as we proceed going forward.
Well,
I have one quick question.
Yeah, go ahead, Andre.
May
Sorry.
I?
Yes,
Just
please.
really
Sure.
quickly. So,
Sure.
and this is sort of like in terms of applicability. Are you going to just build the circuit, and then that can then be expressed in different polynomial, in polynomials over different curves, or are you where are you stopping that in your development? That's a question.
No, the intention is to build a circuit in NARC that can be
Generalize is what you're trying to go for.
Yeah, I mean, we will attempt to generalize it as far as our abilities are. And it is specifically about the circuits.
I think, Boris, it's going to what you're going through will also, I think, be really valuable to provide insights into tool vendors that may want to create tools that make it easier for the next people to build these things. I'd love to see something that comes straight off of a DocuSign, like something that goes through from DocuSign through Clause and into zero knowledge circuits in a fairly friction-free way. That'd be kind of cool.
I mean, we're obviously looking to test it and provide test results for like every circuit we'll build, and yeah, and document. I'm sorry, Andreas, you had a question.
No, it was just the so you're actually gonna go build not only the circuit but the entire prover
Yes.
scheme.
Okay. Yes.
So yeah, so one thing that would be really useful, and that would be a great grant, if someone were to just build the circuit and then have a compiler that allows it to that circuit to be expressed over the pairing friendly curve of your choice, because that would be because that would generalize the whole thing, right? So it's like what you're doing right now is just you're just building it for the the Groth 16 commitment scheme, right? You're going all the way, right? It's it would be great, just write down the gate constraints equations and the copy constraint equations for that circuit, and then generally, and then map that, and then choose and then say, okay, here's here's a curve, now express it as a polynomial over that, as a polynomial system over that curve.
And
So
that's
that's
like,
implicit that's implicit already in the library, but to pull out that piece makes it much more general. Anyway, that would be that would be a great grant proposal for sort of like for version 2 of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that makes. Yeah.
Of course, if you'd like to reach out on Slack, I'd love to follow up on Andreas's comments as well there. So give me a shout on Slack and we can talk about that more. I'd love to talk about it.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I think you said you name my name, Kyle. You
Kyle,
said
yeah.
Boris? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
I think it's Kate. No, you're good. I think it's Kate. I think it's Kate Thomas on Slack.
Yeah. It's okay. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, so let's move right on to Bishwashri. Bishwashri Day, you've also been awarded a grant. Would you like to say a few words? Your Bishwashri is in India, and part of the contingent of growing folks from India that are taking over the baseline community.
Hello, everyone. So my proposal was for creating the plugins for Excel and Oracle database. So this will be part of the persistence package, and so I started out with Excel because that seemed like one of the easier pieces to pick up, and based on the learnings of this project, then maybe later on I can move on to all the other providers, persistent providers that are there. So that's the plan for the future. My grant proposal, the duration I have set for now is about 6 weeks. And as was suggested during the last meeting, I'm also thinking about ways in which I can, after creating the plugins, I can also promote them, and what all, where all I can publish them and help like spread the word about Baseline as well as the plugins. So that's the plan for now. Is there anyone has any questions? Please feel free to like ask them now. Thank you.
So I'll say this is the one that I was a little hesitant on, but not because of the merits of the proposal, just simply the amount of effort that I think may be involved. But congrats on it, and look forward to seeing the project evolve.
That's a good point, Kyle. And Bishwashri, I'd like to encourage you to seek out Cale Teeter, from one of the TSC members from Microsoft, and also our friends over at LimeChain, who worked on the other spreadsheet integration with Google Sheets. I think, and also there were some submissions that didn't. There was some work during the hackathon. So go back to the holiday period hackathon that we did back in November, December, and there was an Excel integration project there. So I think you've got some good foundational work. Also, I would just get Kyle to like to help you out like day to day, because he's got nothing to do.
I think you could also call. Thanks. Call on Envision too. Dan Norkin at Envision.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me. I should have said that as well. Dan Norkin and the team at Envision know a lot. So you got a lot of support for this, and that's one of the great things about being in this community. It is such a kind and engaging community. I've never seen somebody say a bad word to somebody else or make somebody feel silly for asking a question or asking for help. So I'm sure all those folks are happy to help.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I'll then like bother Kyle on Slack then.
Right on.
Hmm.
Okay. Without further ado. So again, those are the next two. There are some really interesting, there's a grant proposal, or there's a bounty proposal for something called the Hello World Project. And so that would be Brian Chamberlain, one of our TSE members, had done some work before. He's gone off to do some really interesting stuff on NFTs as the father of the bootleg NFT protocol, and so he's working on something else right now. But he started us off on thinking about sort of what is the baseline Hello World, and we have a pretty good framework for that. And I think that would be a really easy one for somebody to just say, yeah, I'd like to get a grant for that. So the bounty is defined and you could just grab it. And if we don't see folks grabbing it, we'll turn it into a proper like Gitcoin bounty in the coming weeks. Let me see if I can find it. No code Hello World. If I can find hello. Yeah. So here's the Hello World baseline installable and demo. So, party A, Alice has a baseline stack. Think of this as effectively creating a sort of a messaging app interface where Alice and Bob are trying to say hello and world. And Bob, Alice first says foo, and Bob says changes the message because it's not baselined. And then once you turn baselining on, Bob can't change the message without getting debased, and it goes from there. So it's a whole scenario that we'd love to see turned into a bit of code and put in the examples. So that's one example of something people can do, and you can request a bounty. Anything else on that, guys? All right. Once again, congratulations, Bishwashri and Boris and teams. And we'll see things are really heating up. In fact, one of my favorite professors out there, I won't say her name, but she and her team at Significant University are gearing up to do something and do a grant. So that's exciting. I think we're going to have some really great grants. And if you're a major company and you want to add to the incentive program, you are welcome to do that. Please contact me. You can get me on Slack or any number of ways. Anything else, Nick? Let's talk about, you got anything? Okay. So,
grinding away under the covers, John, just grinding away under the covers.
Right on. I know it's, everything's gotten busy. So, I mean, at this point, people are making money on this baselining stuff. And, I noticed like the website needs some work, right? That's something else you can get a grant for.
Did you tell your GoDaddy story? Maybe not with the domain name, but with your experience where you called GoDaddy support and the guy was like, "Are you John Wolpert from Baseline?"
Yeah, it's no surprise. We're setting up a company around the baselining stuff as well, and we were looking for the domain name. I pinged. There was a name that we wanted and we didn't get it. But we engaged the GoDaddy service, that like go, negotiate the domain name for you service. And I got this email from just random from the agent, right? And he's like, well, this is going to cost like $8 million or something, but are you John Wolpert from Baseline Protocol? Cause I love that. I've followed it every week and he's gushing about it. And I'm like, whoa. So
might be
if you're out there, thanks. That was, you kind of made my day. It was just a random connection, small world. Anyway, I thought that was funny.
It just speaks to the reach of the Baseline Protocol, right? And the strength of message. It's just, it resonates so far and so wide that people get it.
Yeah, this was not somebody that was likely to, have been already a blockchain person or, this was a completely random circumstance. Thought that was wild. Got some new people on the show here. We got Ryan Fish, who is now our new head of engineering for Nick and I's team. Ryan, welcome. I'm looking across. We have Tyler. We got Jake Kwan, Tyler Colvard, Anton Christoph, Mohan. Feel free to chime in if you've got any questions or comments. The purpose of this show is this is the office hours. So this is where we can talk about, where people are having trouble, any issues that they might have, and anywhere where they need help. Also, if we don't get any of that, we can also just talk about stuff. Speaking of stuff, I'll pause for a second, see if there are any questions. things that people want to bring up, any problems that they're having with getting into the baseline protocol work.
I've got a question, John. Is there a guide or some sort of sort of a walkthrough to understand circuits and proofs a little more?
Yeah, that's a great question. See, that's the kind of question we're looking for. This is good. None of us have any answers for that, though. Sorry, no, I'm kidding. There are a number of, as you probably know, the baseline protocol isn't a platform as such. It is a standard in development. And so it is not that the baseline protocol says here is a zero knowledge system you are going to use and that we're giving you. It's saying that you can use any zero knowledge service that complies with the standard. And in this case, the ones that have been used to date are Socrates and NARK, GNARK. Andreas knows a lot about that, and I'm looking around at.
I'm gonna ping a link in 1 second where you can get going. It starts from like the pedestrian and then goes all the way into up to incrementally verifiable proofs and so forth.
Appreciate
proof carrying data. 1 second.
Yeah, and I'll paste that into the YouTube channel as well. Okay. So yeah, and Boris, do you have some thoughts about that? I mean, you're doing your grant on the subject. Do you have some thoughts?
I can also ping. I mean, we're doing. Everyone on the team is doing. We haven't built any circuits before, so this is the first round for us. So we've been doing quite a lot of research recently, and there was a conference last week which we thought was very helpful. I think it's Ether Global. So I can ping that also. But at this point, I mean, we did very simple stuff with the ZK Snarks, but I can't I can provide some links also that we've been reading and researching.
And I'm just going to pull up real quick the repo and show. Maybe we can navigate into. So I'm putting this up in front of the YouTube thing for folks that are not seeing that. So we have core, and so when you get into, is Kyle back on?
I don't think so.
So a lot of the work in the zero knowledge circuit stuff is in the privacy package in core, and there's some other stuff in the implementation libraries that you can find. So that's where you're going to want to start to look. And again, you can reach out to anybody on the Slack on the dev channel or anywhere you like. That people will talk to you about this. The at the high level, think of the zero knowledge circuits in baselining are not like what you would expect with say a ZK Snark implementation on chain. These are off chain services that generate a proof that goes on chain and is verified on chain. I like to think of it the way I used to think about a Java interface class. And if you're writing code, if you've ever written Java code, an interface class will enforce correctness on other business logic at a high level. That's sort of the way to think about a zero knowledge circuit here. So you can say, well, I'm gonna this work step is work step number 1 is for it is going to lay down the proof for a master service agreement between companies A and B and C. And one of the things that will follow from that master service agreement is purchase orders. and the purchase orders, in order to generate their proofs, must be able to, are linked to the master service agreement, and that master service agreement would enforce correctness on those proofs. Only one can be processed at a time. You can't. They need to be serial. Can't have multiple ones all calculating from the same base. And there are certain other rules, like there shouldn't be any gaps between rate A and rate B, for example. That's what I mean by enforcing correctness. Andreas, did I get any of that right?
Yeah, you were really far away. No, just kidding. You were really close.
You put an extra really in there too. That.
Yeah. The really cubed. No, it's all good. It's like think of if you had to turn a contract into a computer program. That's really what it is. It's like all the stuff, all the functional elements of a contract that says like, this is an address and this must be the address, and these are the terms, right? It's net 30, right? So any commercial document you're trying to send has these values in it, and so what you're doing is you're pinging those values in your commercial document against the circuit.
So you could write a circuit that says it's got to be 30.
It has to be, it's like this element has to be 30. This billing address, this has to be the billing address. And obviously you're doing now like fancy stuff, because you don't want to write, it's like the exact address and everything. So you're taking the hash of that, right? So you're comparing hash values and all that good stuff. And then because it's constrained, right? It says it's like, these must be equal to this must be equal to that, right? That's when you see constraints. That's exactly what that means. It's like an algebraic equation, if you want to say. It's like you
taking business logic and turning it into addition, subtraction, and multiplication, so you can
that is
map
exactly
it onto an
right.
elliptic curve, right? Yeah.
And then
and there are limits to that, right? You can't do that for
crypto.
just anything. It's a limited space that you can apply that to, right?
No, not really. You can make the programs as large as you want. You're only constrained by the compute power you have, right? It's like so to give you an idea, if you want to validate a hash, you're generating a constraint that is a polynomial that has a power of about 70,000, and that's small, right? So it's like you're what you typically do is you will have some that are in the billions, of constraints. And
fortunately, we're not doing that on chain, right?
No, that is what you're doing off chain. But the beauty of it is, what's on chain is just something that is like, it's like a kilobyte size wise. So that's not hard, and and it's easy to you have on chain logic that can easily verify that proof is correct.
And is this done in Python, Rust? What is it? What are you using?
Now you're getting really specific. So there are different types of implementations written in different languages. Rust, Go.
If you're doing a circuit in Socrates, you're going to write a DSL that's specific for Socrates. If you're using NARC, which I should, full disclosure, is a consensus project that's going in production. NARC uses Go, allows you to write Go.
It's actually relatively straightforward. If you want to play around with like NARC, it's really easy to get going. They have the GitHub repo has some really nice simple examples. Otherwise, you can also do, if you want to do something a little bit fancier, you go to ZK Sync, the Matter Labs, and they have Zinc as a language, and they actually have a compiler, and that looks like Rust. So the language that you're coding in is actually basically Rust, and you have a compiler, and that produces like really nice things. And the main difference is that certain schemes are significantly more flexible than others. So, and that's the main difference. It's like, think of it, if you're familiar with SQL, think of it like what GNARC and so forth does is like you're writing a stored procedure and you actually store it, and you
Yeah.
can't change it afterwards, right? So with others, you can actually have the full SQL program available for you, and you can write many programs and use the same cryptographic prover scheme that you started with.
We
which
should
is an
probably say,
advantage.
just to set context for folks, why do we do this fancy business with zero knowledge circuits? Well, technically, you could just lay down, signatures and a payload of hash payload, where zero knowledge, and I think Lucas has a lot to say about this, where zero knowledge circuits become important is where you want to enforce workflow integrity across a set of work steps, and where you don't want all of the business logic out there in the clear in some kind of smart contract on the blockchain, and where ultimately, and this is a key part, where you also want to be able to not allow somebody looking at the baseline artifacts on a blockchain and be able to ascertain things like, Andreas and Ryan seem to be doing a lot of business together. What's going on there? Or any kind of morphology that would allow an AI to generate a classifier and figure out business activities or relationships from that. So zero knowledge throughout the process of where we use zero knowledge circuits, and also the verifier contract and the shield contract on the mainnet, or on an L2. All of that is to make sure that effectively what anybody's looking at, if they're not party to a particular business process, all they see is noise and all they hear is a metronome. There's no information.
So the question, I think, Andreas, you were talking about, was it splitting the circuit from the proof that when you were talking to Boris about? Was that what it was?
Yeah, so the steps is like, so first you write the program, right? And then you you express the program. You re-express that program, right? If you think about an if statement is nothing but a constraint, right? If A equals B, then do C, right? Right. So it's like and so this is you can express all of these commands. They are all linked together, and you can express them as a sequence of constraints that have to be true, right? That are built on top of one another, right? So if A has to be equal to C, and then there's D, and D has to be equal to E, and then you add F to it, but E plus F has to be equal to K, right? And K is an input that you give. So you can express these as constraints, and you can write them down as like little, really like gates, like you had in your old electrical engineering one, where you had the AND and the OR and the XOR
like Rocky's boots.
Yeah, exactly. Like totally. So you can write, think of these like these transistors that all work together, and they give you a result at the end. And the magic is that you can express these constraints as polynomials, right? Because you can express a number through a polynomial, and then you can do some really fancy cryptography, because polynomials do not have to be over real numbers. They can be over, for example, prime fields, right? And
I'm going to stop us there.
Become really interesting.
Just we could go a long time on this stuff, and Andreas, as always, awesomeness. But just to move on from there, I see that Tyler Colvard asked a question about healthcare companies, and are they flocking to baseline? I will say baselining. I like to use the verb myself. In to baseline or not to baseline, that is the question. So I've just personally had what is it, Nick, like 3 conversations in the last week or 2 with healthcare companies saying, hey, we'd like to, how do we start doing this baselining stuff? So that's kind of interesting. Unfortunately, not everybody is as cool as Coca-Cola or as Jack, help me. What was your other big one that's out there?
ServiceNow.
ServiceNow.
Yeah.
Apologies to ServiceNow. Service. These are brave companies that are out in the open at the beginning of their projects. Typically, healthcare companies don't want to tell you about it until well after the end of their projects. So, there's a lot of dark matter out there, I think. In fact, given the fact that we were seeing so many clones in the last couple of weeks alone of the baseline stack or the baseline code base, I suspect there's a lot of people doing work that just don't want to talk about it yet.
I'm actually I'm talking to a friend of mine who's a fairly big guy in the semiconductor industry, and I was talking to him about baseline and providing and so on, and how it seems to be probably a better architecture for that industry, and so we're still doing some research into it together to see if there is a problem to be solved, and then looking at it as technology is, or the platform as a subsequent step. So it could be an interesting thing. He's a seminal figure in the industry. So I'll let you guys know if anything goes anywhere.
Well, I'll tell you, this is my PSA for anybody selling this sort of thing. Go long and first on talking about verified multi-party workflows and integrity of workflows and collaboration between companies. And I'd go short on things like, this isn't a blockchain conversation. Blockchain is fairly limited use, a very important small piece of use. It's essential, but it is not the thing. And a lot of CISOs or a lot of CIOs out there in companies, when they hear blockchain, they go, they get on the bandwagon of what they've been thinking and hearing about for the last 5 years. You got to break that mentality, right? Every time I'm on a call with a company, they go, well, why would we use blockchain? Why would we use the mainnet? I'm like, it's not about that, right? It's what you're thinking of is using a blockchain as a database. Baselining says hashes are for blockchains and data is for databases. Just say that over and over again to them. Say, we're going to use a blockchain as an ordering service and hash management service. None of your data goes there. It's safe. It's actually the pattern you'd want to use. And let's not have a blockchain conversation. Let's have a verified multi-party workflow conversation. And let's do that in the most efficient, standards-based way we can.
Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, I just took the opportunity. I mean, I think more people need to be saying that. I'm getting tired of having to argue about why blockchains are good or bad. I'm like, that's not what we're here for. What we need is a tamper-resistant, always-on state machine that can't lock you out of things to use as a bulletin board for hashes. It's at a very simple basis. That's the thing, and any CISO or CIO should be fine with that if they know what they're talking about.
Verifiable hashes, John. Verifiable hashes.
Thank you.
That's
untampered, verifiable hashes.
Which is really important because it makes compliance all of a sudden very, 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 very easy.
Yeah, I mean, you could use the New York Times classified section for this, but it's a little slow. And technically, they could lock you out. They could stop, letting you post classifieds. Anyway, so moving on. We have 15 minutes, 20 minutes left. And last week we started really talking about what needs to go into version 1 of the protocol and the standard. I see Tyler probably had to run off. That guy is busy. But we got Lucas here. We've got Jack here. And so let me just bring up what we had last week and we can start to continue to add to it. So as you may know, if you've been following along, we have a big initiative going forward, and you can sign up for, you can create grants around this. You could say, hey, I want to help. I want to build this piece or that piece into version 1, and you can volunteer that time, as many of us do, or you can do a grant, and depending on the difficulty of it. So here is the list that we kind of got through. I won't go into explaining all of these. You can go back to the video from last week. But what else are what are we missing here? What are we missing? What else needs to, this session is sort of let's make sure we think about things we might not have thought about that need to go into V1. There's a lot of obvious things, improvement on the persistence package. The standard is, Andreas, you might want to talk about some of the standards issues that are coming up that need to go into the version 1 of the standard draft, which we aim to have out by the end of the year. Carl, you and I had a pretty interesting conversation. Let's start there, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot. From the perspective of invoicing and EDI and big companies working with little companies, what does a baseline stack have to deliver to not be useless for you?
Primarily, it has to have a combination of attestation and verification, right? So it has to have a number of counterparties involved that can interrogate kind of the cradle to grave elements of a transaction and verify each individual step ad hoc. That's really what it needs, right? So not just EDI, but we've been doing a lot, as we talked about at a high level in kind of not cross-border financing, but trade financing and relative to supply chains and things like that. And there's there's kind of a vacuum that's been created recently, right? So there's all this data available floating around out there, but there's no way to really unlock it and create something cogent out of it, right? So you have point-to-point EDI connections, you have ERP to CRM connections. All of this is very disseminated, right? So what do? You usually bring a service bus or an API gateway or an SI to come in to use all this tooling to create a canonical model out of everything. It's horribly inefficient, right? And it still ends up being kind of a spot solution. We really need a way to provide verification for the entire logical transaction that's obviously composed of many discrete physical transactions for a particular use case.
Right on. I captured poorly some of that, and maybe we can talk about it more. But I think that some of that, I mean, is fundamental to baselining, right? Like the ability to verify and attest to a set of transactions. There's been a lot of discussion. Our friends over at Intuit, who are on the standards body, have talked a lot about, or talked before about the ability for things to change, right? You need to be able to not only lay down an invoice, but if somebody made a mistake on that, you have to be able to go back and cover the change, right? Obviously, that means nullifier and a procedure that allows you to stay baselined with everybody, but make a change to what you've got, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Not necessarily removing that transaction history, but appending to it, obviously, right? And the biggest issue that I see.
Well, no, actually, let me stop you on that. You could change your database, unless you have you have a good logger like Splunk or something. You won't necessarily, unless your database is set up to logger. If you're using that kind of structure, you could just make a change to the database, and the system should say, all right, that database has changed. That person has the right to change. And now I'm going to rerun the baseline event. The hash, or the proof will be an append. You can always go back to the previous proof, but your database may not have appended. It may simply have changed the original data.
Which is fair. We would still need that attestate, the ability to have that audit trail. So
that's right.
It's very important to have that. And one of the biggest inefficiencies that I see in the projects I'm involved in, the conversations I have, is a lot of this, there may be some programmatic help right now, but it's very manual, right? It's when you have trading partners, those relationships are very, you might do EDI direct connect. However, that's only one part of the story, right? That's not, to the treasury management departments. That's not to the financial institutions. That's really just one leg of this overall supply chain transaction. And where the industry's moving right now, in my opinion, and it's a very cottage industry. There's a lot of small kind of niche players in it. There's some larger ones, et cetera. But they're looking and they're very thirsty for something that's cohesive and automated, right? And transparent, so that anybody, any market participant can go and have access to, the information to verify it, right? That doesn't mean they need all of the data or all of the metadata of the transaction, but they need to verify arbitrary legs of the transaction, right? And it's horribly, it's virtually impossible because of the cast of characters involved right now.
Yeah, I wonder if I wonder if it's probably not a must. It might be a should that a data system that is baselining should. Andreas, what do you think? Should, or maybe this is a non-normative thing for the standard to say, you should be recording, or storing your past values, right? So if I change the invoice from 100 to 200, and the baseline so that gets properly baselined, everybody now has 200, but you should also know that the previous hash is referring to 100, and you should probably store that somewhere. Whether you're doing that with an append style database or setup or something else, and
You don't really need that, right?
you don't need it. No, I'm saying
No, you don't need it because if you have the proofs, and that's all you need, right?
well, no, because you don't have the preimage anymore. If you destroyed 100, you can't prove 100 anymore. You don't have 100.
Well, if that was but that was what was encoded that's actually what's encoded in the circuit, right? If you're validating price, or if you're validating that, it's like whatever you send conform to that, and if you update that and you put and you refer to the previous proof, right, and you do what's called an aggregator, then you can prove with one proof both, right? So it's like that's the and they're related, which means you have proof correctness for the entire chain of events.
Yeah, that would be critical to have some relationship between those.
Yeah,
those
you can
events.
do that, and the critical piece at that point is that these aggregators need to be can grow over time, right? Because if you have like 100, and then you're suddenly one proof is like a megabyte, that can't be, right? So you have to your proofs have to be both succinct and efficient. So that makes you're now in a particular class, but that still works. It exists, and that's actually what's the basis of what are called stateless blockchains, right? So you don't have to schlock the data around anymore. That's the whole point. So it's like, think of a supply chain just like the history of a Bitcoin. And imagine you don't have to have the history of a Bitcoin anymore to prove that what you had is a Bitcoin, because you have all the proofs aggregated. That's it.
Yeah, for V1 of something, just having kind of the point in time correctness and being able to kind of ad hoc verify legs of the transaction is super useful. But for V2, putting a business hat on, what I see is companies and counterparties are very interested, not just in what the current value of a book is, but what the state history of the book is, right? To understand risk management, why that invoice changed from $100 to $200, right? Was it because somebody fat fingered something? Was it because there was a supply chain disruption? We don't have enough chips to make enough trucks, right? So I can't fulfill an order, right? So that would reflect poorly on me as a supplier. There's all of these other kind of ephemeral considerations, right, on why you need that transaction history. Maybe not for a V1 implementation, but maybe for a V2.
So what you're really talking about is you need you need more than the transaction data. You need the transaction context.
Yeah. Oh yeah. All of in just my opinion, the entirety, and I've heard this from customers, the entirety of the value is not in the transaction, the transaction information. It's the context and the intelligence that could be built around a transaction. We really have a lot of parties we're talking to that want to unlock that value. as either a competitive advantage or risk management, you know, especially to, you know, if things need to be underwritten, especially with what's going on, especially in DeFi right now. I see a lot of AMMs and automated entities out there that would be able to underwrite some of these transactions if they had a good risk model and they had inputs based on different contextual events that are part of a particular transaction, right? And even kind of I refer to humans as kind of fleshies, right? The legacy world right now, where it's very point to point, you have a lot of fleshies involved in managing and settlement and things like that. They look at the entire book of risk for trading partners, right? And they do a lot of that manually today. And I just see this as a brilliant kind of platform and technology and approach where we automate that all away. You know,
I should say, Carl, you haven't given me any permission to tell folks where you're from, so I won't out you there unless you choose to do it yourself. But Carl's at a company that's the real deal in this space in supply chain and ERP and working with big giant manufacturers, so he knows what he's talking about.
Especially on content-heavy processes.
Yeah, it seems to be that would be done off chain. What you're describing here, it's definitely is being done by companies, but if you start saving the state and actually the association between states, or like it can get very deep, and that would drive you towards, I think, building actually a database on the blockchain.
I would agree.
Quick question.
No, go ahead, Nick. Sorry.
If you're baselining, say, an two ERP systems, right? And you know the value is 100, the value is 200, the value is 300, and you're baselining as you go. Your ERP system will still have the log of the change of that record. So you will have your context of that, independent of what's on the blockchain, right?
Right.
So is putting on the blockchain redundant, or
it's not? I don't think putting it again. I'm a right tool for the right job guy, right? So I don't feel blockchains. It's a data. I treat it as a data structure, right? It's a linked list, you know, with decentralized linked list, right? So I think, yeah, and there's a bunch of stuff in the objects, right? So, but my point is that I think there's value. You're going to have all of this off-chain stuff. You're going to have oracles in the ecosystem. You're going to have all of these things, right? You're going to have proxies for things, whatever, right? I think what's valuable is that you need a way to cryptographically understand if somebody's gone into their SAP instance and fudged something, right? And whether it's you come up with you have an output
and they need to know that
and you have a good curve,
right?
Whatever.
Yeah. They need to be able to, if I would implement this with some kind of polling to say, hey, my record is debased. It's no longer passing its test, its shot test, right? So that way, even if nobody else notices, I notice, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's the point, is that you put something out there in a transparent kind of system, whether it's a hash on a blockchain or whatever, that's verifiable. You can work backwards to what the origin state of that record was, right? Proof of something, right? Call it PLS, proof of something.
Proof of consistency is what we often talk about.
I know ETH 2 is coming, but we'll call it a proof of something, right? You need something out there to take these disparate records and to have parties independently verify them and be able to attest to them.
Well,
like, so if you're baselining in your auditor, sorry, go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, I'm just mindful of the fact we only have a couple minutes left. And I would like to say one thing. I had the pleasure of talking to Ken Holman, who is a legend in standards around supply chain, invoicing, and is one of the fathers, I think you could legitimately say, of UBL and all the standards that have come up around e-invoicing. And it happens that the Oasis organization that we are, Oasis Open, oasis-open.org, that we're cooking the baseline standard up in, is one of the progenitors of UBL and all the ISO standards that have come out of it. I'm going to put the link in both YouTube and in our in the Zoom chat. I really encourage folks to take a look at this. I mean, clearly, baselining itself is at a lower layer. Anything like EDI or formats, schema, structures, rules are at a higher layer, but there's a lot of interplay there. And it's really great to have somebody like, I mean, he spent like an hour and a half with me going through e-invoicing standards, where it's going, where it's been. It was fascinating. So if folks are, you know, starting to get their heads around baselining, you're now going to want to get your head also onto what you're going to apply baselining to. Supply chain stuff is key. And this is e-invoicing standards are big. Lucas, I saw your hand either go up or you were clapping. If your hand went up, I'll give you the last word here. Yep, a man of few words there, Lucas.
He
Mark,
must have been
did you have
clapping.
your hand up?
Yeah, I did.
Go ahead.
Drew Malik put a question in the chat on the YouTube that I definitely think is relevant and we probably should address on this is, you know, does V1 require an SDK implementation of the protocol, which would be agnostic to the server or the provide service? Anybody want to take a crack at that?
I'm looking for the comment.
Between Timothy Coleman and On My Way, it's like the 4th or 5th from the bottom.
Yeah.
V1 require SDK implementation of the protocol, which will be agnostic to server provide service. Agnostic is a loaded word in baseline and blockchain circles, but there is nothing in the protocol, as we've said, and there is no definitive SDK for baseline, right? That you would
Wouldn't
have
that
an
be the
implementation.
API?
Yeah. The core interface APIs are abstract, so you can use them with anything. You could use them with, I often say, an Arduino in your closet, right? I expect that there will be lots of L2s springing up that will want to bag up your baseline proofs and drop the roots on the mainnet in a variety of forms with a variety of prices. That would be healthy, but there is nothing that requires any particular common frame of reference. Even Ethereum itself. I mean, even though most of us are Ethereum folks in the community, there's nothing that requires that you use that. The worst that you risk if you don't use Ethereum is that I might, as a pundit, laugh at you. But that's my right and your right to ignore me. So let the best mainnet win. I do believe that the point of baselining is to get rid of the silos. And so at the end of the day, there's got to be one state machine that serves them all. And my vote's for Ethereum, and maybe the history will work it out that way. That's my point. There was a question, is Kyle not on today? There's a big Kyle fan club here. And he was on, he ran off, which is just evidence of how well he's doing right now. There's so much work because Jack Lee is such a great salesperson that he's just jumping through his butt all day long. Is that right, Jack?
Keep him busy, Jack.
That's spot on.
Yep. He calls me in the middle of the night, says, "Hey, John," and then 2 seconds later, I got to go. All right. Anything else? Okay.
Thanks,
well,
baseliners.
Keep on baselining, everybody.
Baseline.